If you're struggling with functions or you don't know actually where to start, then this video is for you. Today we're going to take a look at the linear function, which is also known as the straight line function. This function, guys, is very simple. Just need you to understand two fundamental things about this function. So it goes with this equation, which is mx plus c. So what I want you to understand about this function is for you to understand the role of m and the role of c. So let's start with the role of m. The role of m is what is the gradient of the graph, and then the role of c is what is the y-intercept of the graph. So what are the role of m and c? Let's start with m. It describes the gradient and also the shape of the graph, or it also describes the shape of the graph. Let me show you what I mean. If your m is greater than 0, or when it is positive, your graph is going to stand something like this. It's going to be what? It's going to be an increasing graph. And when your m is less than 0, which one is negative, your graph is going to stand something like this. It's going to be what? A decreasing graph. So what I usually do in my class and tell my student to memorize all this, whenever you're given whenever you forget the shape of the straight line, just remember the Nike logo. When your m is positive, it's going to stand as a Nike logo, something like this. Remember the Nike logo, it goes like this, and when it is negative, it's going to stand something like this. So this is another way to understand this kind of stuff. So let's go to the value of y. So the value of y, guys, is just stand for the y-intercept, but the role of it in this kind of function is just that it shifts the graph shift the graph up and down. Let me show you what I mean. So here it is. Suppose since the value of c, it just shifts the graph up and down. So when we have the mother graph, which is this one, y is equals to x, the graph, it goes from the origin, which means that the value of c here is what? Is 0 on this kind of thing, which means it passes through the origin. So what happens if we have y, which is x plus 1? What is going to happen? The graph, since here it was 0, is going to move 1 unit up by 1 unit, which means it's going to move from 0 to 1 by 1 unit. So which means the graph is going to stand something like this. So this is the graph of what? Of yx plus 1. So do you see the effect of the value of c? So suppose we have something like this. What is going to happen? Perfect. So the graph is going to shift 2 units down, which means from 0, -1, -2. Your graph is going to go something like this. So this is the effect and the role of the value of c. It just shifts the straight line up and down. So this information, it is very important, because it's going to help you to understand the movement of a linear function. So the question that I usually get from my student after explaining all this information is that they become more curious about the gradient. Most of them, they ask me what happened to the line actually, what happened to this line if the gradient is 2 or 3? How does this affect the graph? So what I usually tell them, and what I will also tell you who is at home about the gradient actually, is that yes, the gradient, it can be 2 here. It can be y equal to 2x plus 3. I'm just giving an example. The graph, it can be -2x plus 1, blah blah blah, all those kinds of information. The gradient, it can be 2 or half or even 100 or even 1,000. But honestly, at this stage, what matters the most is whether the gradient is positive or is it negative, because this is the only thing that is going to help you to understand how you are going to draw your graph. Does that make sense? Remember, the role of m, it does not only represent the gradient, it also represents the shape of the graph. So The number that is here on the graph, it does not matter. The only thing that matters is the sign of the graph. So this one, by just looking at it, then our graph is just going to stand something like what? If it's y 2x plus 3, it's going to move 3 unit upwards. The graph is going to move 3 unit up. Then 3 unit upwards, but it's going to be what? It's going to be positive. Does that make sense? So when it's negative half x plus 1, what we know is that when it is negative, our graph is going to stand something like this, and going to move 1 unit upwards, which means the graph is going to stand something like this. Does that make sense? So you see, the number that is here on the gradient, it does not matter. The only thing that matters here is what is whether is it negative or is it positive. So make sure that you watch my next video. On my next video, I'm going to discuss how to find the gradient of the graph. So see you on my next video. Sharp.